Marcus Chen stared at the massive alien standing before him, trying not to let his jaw drop. The creature towered 12 feet tall, with skin that shimmered like liquid silver and eyes that burned like twin stars. Behind the alien monarch, hundreds of other species filled the grand throne room, all watching Marcus with expressions ranging from curiosity to outright fear. "Human Marcus Chen!" The alien king's voice boomed through the chamber, each word carrying the weight of ancient authority. "You have served the Galactic Alliance with honor that surpasses legend. Your actions on Kepler 442b saved not just our forces, but 3 entire civilizations from the Void Spawn invasion." Marcus shifted uncomfortably in his dress uniform. The medals on his chest felt heavier than usual, especially the newest one, a crystalline star that seemed to pulse with its own inner light. He had been a simple Marine sergeant when humanity first joined the Galactic Alliance 5 years ago. Now, somehow, he stood before the most powerful being in known space. "Your Majesty," Marcus began, his voice steady despite the circumstances. "I only did what needed doing. My squad and we couldn't let those monsters reach the civilian populations." A ripple of whispers spread through the assembled aliens. The Void Spawn were creatures of pure nightmare, beings from the spaces between realities that consumed entire planets, leaving nothing but empty husks of dead rock behind. For the past decade, they had been pushing deeper into Alliance territory, and conventional weapons barely scratched them. "Modesty," the king mused, his massive head tilting slightly. "How refreshingly human. Tell me, warrior, do you understand what you accomplished on that battlefield?" Marcus remembered it all too clearly. His squad had been tasked with evacuating the last civilian transport when the Void Spawn broke through the main defense lines. Massive creatures that looked like living shadows with too many teeth, moving faster than anything that size should be able to move. The aliens had advanced weapons, sure, but they seemed to freeze up when things got really bad. "We held the line until the transports cleared the atmosphere," Marcus said simply. "Lost good people doing it." "You held for 73 hours against overwhelming odds," the king corrected. "Your species' capacity for violence, for refusing to yield even when facing certain death, it defies our understanding. The Kithara battle masters, who have studied warfare for millennia, called your tactics impossibly reckless. The Zentari Strategic Council described your squad's actions as tactically insane but strategically brilliant." Marcus winced slightly. He had heard similar complaints from alien commanders before. Humans had a reputation in the Alliance for being unpredictable, dangerous, and just a little bit crazy. Most species fought wars like chess matches, calculated, precise, minimizing casualties. Humans fought like they were trying to bite their enemy's throat out. "The defense satellites were down," Marcus explained. "The orbital platforms were destroyed. We had no air support, no heavy weapons, and the enemy had us outnumbered 50-1. Sometimes the only option is to get creative." "Creative," the king repeated, and there was something like amusement in his stellar eyes. "Is that what you call using improvised explosives to collapse an entire mountain range on the enemy force?" "It worked, didn't it?" The alien monarch actually laughed, a sound like distant thunder that made the crystal formations around the throne room chime in harmony. "Indeed it did. Which brings me to why you stand before me today." The king gestured, and a section of the floor near his throne began to glow. The light formed a platform that rose slowly, revealing something that made Marcus's breath catch in his throat. It was a creature unlike anything he had ever seen, clearly canine in basic shape, but massive, easily the size of a small horse. Its fur was deep black, shot through with veins of silver that pulsed with soft light. Its eyes were intelligent, ancient, and unmistakably aware. "This is Shadowfang," the king announced, "a void wolf of the astral reaches. His kind exist partially outside our reality, able to move through dimensions as easily as you walk through air. They are among the few beings in the universe capable of hunting the void spawn in their native realm. The creature, Shadowfang, turned its massive head to study Marcus. When their eyes met, Marcus felt a strange sensation, like someone gently probing the edges of his mind. Not invasive, more like a careful knock on a door. Void wolves choose their own companions, the king continued. They cannot be commanded, cannot be forced to serve. In all of recorded history, only 17 beings have been deemed worthy of their partnership. 15 of those were members of my own royal bloodline. Marcus looked around the throne room, noticing how every single alien present was watching this moment with what could only be described as shock. Whatever was happening here, it was apparently a very big deal. "Your Majesty," Marcus said carefully, "I'm honored, but I don't understand what you're asking of me." "I am not asking anything, human warrior. This is Shadowfang's choice." The king's expression grew serious. 3 days ago, immediately after the reports of your actions on Kepler 442b reached the capital, Shadowfang sought me out. For the first time in his 600-year existence, he expressed interest in bonding with someone not of royal blood. The wolf padded down from the platform with fluid grace that seemed to defy physics. Each step made no sound, and Marcus could swear the creature's paws were not quite touching the ground. As Shadowfang approached, Marcus felt that mental presence again, stronger now. Then, to his complete amazement, the wolf spoke. Not aloud, but directly into his mind, the voice deep and rumbling with ancient wisdom. "You are the one who stood against the shadow spawn while others fled." Shadowfang's mental voice carried undertones of respect. "You are the one who chose to fight the impossible battle because it was right, not because it could be won. I have watched you, Marcus Chen of Earth. I find you adequate." Marcus blinked. "Adequate?" "For a human," Shadowfang added. And Marcus could swear he detected amusement in the telepathic voice. "Do not let it go to your head, young warrior. I am doing you a considerable favor by offering my partnership." "He speaks?" Marcus asked aloud, looking between the wolf and the alien king. "Void wolves are among the most intelligent species in existence," the king explained. "Shadowfang is particularly verbose. Fair warning, he has opinions about everything and is not shy about sharing them." "I heard that," Shadowfang's voice chimed in Marcus's head. "And my opinions are invariably correct, so they are worth sharing." Marcus stared at the massive wolf, then looked back at the alien king. "What exactly would this partnership involve?" "Void wolves and their chosen companions share a mental bond," the king explained. "You would be able to communicate telepathically, share sensory information, and coordinate in battle with perfect synchronization. More importantly, Shadowfang's dimensional abilities would allow you to pursue the void spawn into their own realm, something no other alliance forces can do." "The shadow spawn have been retreating lately," Shadowfang added mentally. "They are gathering for something big. A final push, perhaps. The Alliance will need every advantage they can get." Marcus considered this. The war against the void spawn had been going badly for months. Every victory came at terrible cost, and the enemy seemed endless, if there was a chance to take the fight to them. "What's the catch?" Marcus asked. "There's always a catch." The king's expression grew grave. "The mental bond with a void wolf is permanent. Once formed, it cannot be broken except by death. You would be linked to Shadowfang for the rest of your natural life. Additionally, extended exposure to dimensional travel and the energies of the void realm can change people. Previous human-wolf partnerships have resulted in enhanced abilities, but also psychological effects that your species' medical personnel are still studying." Previous human-wolf partnerships? Marcus repeated. You said only 17 beings had ever bonded with void wolves, and 15 were royalty. The 16th was a human, the king admitted. Colonel Sarah Rodriguez, one of your kind's first representatives to the Alliance. She and her wolf partner, Nightshade, disappeared into the Void Realm 6 months ago while pursuing a void spawn hive cluster. We have received no word from them since. Marcus felt his blood run cold. Sarah Rodriguez was a legend among human military personnel, the first human to achieve general rank in the Alliance forces, and widely considered one of the most capable officers in human history. If she was missing in action... She is not dead, Shadowfang interjected, somehow picking up on Marcus's thoughts. Nightshade and I maintained contact until recently. They found something in the deep void, something that changed their mission parameters. But that is not your concern now. The question is whether you will accept my offer of partnership. Marcus looked around the throne room again. Hundreds of alien dignitaries, military officers, and nobles were watching him make what was apparently one of the most significant decisions in recent galactic history. The weight of expectation was crushing. But then he thought about Kepler 442b, the families they had evacuated, the children who would grow up safe because his squad had held the line, the thousands of other worlds that were still under threat from the void spawn. If this partnership could give him the tools to protect more innocent lives. I accept, Marcus said firmly. The reaction in the throne room was immediate and dramatic. Some aliens cheered, others gasped, and a few actually fainted. The king smiled broadly, showing rows of crystalline teeth. Excellent, Shadowfang commented as he padded closer to Marcus. Try not to embarrass me, human. I have a reputation to maintain. Same to you, talking dog. I am a cosmic entity of immense power and ancient wisdom, not a dog, Shadowfang replied indignantly. Though I will admit, your species' domesticated canines do show admirable loyalty and courage for such simple creatures. The king raised one massive hand, and the entire throne room fell silent. Then let the bonding ceremony begin. Be warned, human. This process will be intense. Shadowfang moved to stand directly in front of Marcus, his silver-flecked fur beginning to glow more brightly. Are you ready, partner? Marcus took a deep breath. He had jumped out of aircraft into hostile territory, faced down alien horrors, and held impossible defensive positions. How hard could telepathic bonding with a dimensional wolf be? Ready, he said. Shadowfang's eyes flared with brilliant light, and suddenly Marcus felt as if his mind was expanding, stretching beyond the boundaries of his skull. New sensations flooded his awareness. The ability to perceive electromagnetic spectra beyond human vision, to sense dimensional fluctuations, to feel the very fabric of space-time rippling around him. And through it all, he felt Shadowfang's presence settling into his mind like an old friend making himself at home. The wolf's personality was vast and complex. Ancient wisdom mixed with sharp intelligence and a dry sense of humor that reminded Marcus uncomfortably of his old drill sergeant. Well, Shadowfang's voice resonated not just in Marcus's mind now, but seemed to echo through his entire being. This is going to be interesting. I can already tell you think far too much about things that do not matter and not nearly enough about things that do. Great, Marcus muttered aloud. A telepathic life coach. Among other things. Now, shall we discuss your complete lack of understanding regarding interdimensional combat techniques, or would you prefer to start with your abysmal grasp of cosmic energy manipulation? The king chuckled. I believe the ceremony is complete. Marcus Chen of Earth, you are now bonded to Shadowfang of the astral reaches. May this partnership serve the Alliance well. As the formal words echoed through the throne room, Marcus realized his life had just changed forever. He was no longer just a human marine. He was something entirely new, the second human ever to bond with a void wolf, with all the responsibilities and dangers that entailed. "So," he said to his new partner, "what happens now?" "Now," Shadowfang replied, his mental voice carrying undertones of anticipation. "We begin your education in the art of hunting shadows between the stars. But first, I believe your people have a saying about feeding soldiers before battles. You're hungry? I have not eaten properly in days. This bonding ceremony required fasting. Also, I am curious about this substance your kind calls bacon that features so prominently in human thoughts." Marcus couldn't help but grin. "I think I'm going to like having you around." "Naturally, I am quite likable, despite what my previous acquaintances might claim. Though I should warn you, I have very specific opinions about proper nutrition, tactical planning, and the general incompetence of most military leadership." As they walked out of the throne room together, Marcus wondered what he had gotten himself into. Behind them, the alien king watched with satisfaction. The Alliance had just gained its second human-wolf partnership team, and if Marcus Chen was anything like Sarah Rodriguez, the Void Spawn were about to discover just how dangerous humans could be when properly equipped. "One more thing," Shadowfang added as they entered the corridor outside the throne room. "Your quarters will need to be enlarged. I require adequate space to pace while thinking, and I do considerable thinking. Anything else I should know? I snore loudly, and I occasionally howl at stellar phenomena that remind me of home. Also, I have strong opinions about human entertainment media. Your species' portrayal of wolves is generally insulting." Marcus laughed despite himself. "This is going to be an adventure. Indeed. Though I prefer the term educational experience in applied cosmic violence." 3 weeks after the bonding ceremony, Marcus was beginning to understand why only 17 beings in galactic history had been chosen by void wolves. Training with Shadowfang was unlike anything he had ever experienced, and that was saying something considering his military background included specialized courses in zero-gravity combat, exotic weapons handling, and survival on hostile alien worlds. "Focus, human." Shadowfang's mental voice carried a note of exasperation as Marcus stumbled out of another dimensional rift, his stomach churning from the transition. "You are thinking like a three-dimensional being trying to move through four-dimensional space. Stop fighting the process and simply exist within it." "That doesn't make any sense," Marcus gasped, leaning against the wall of their training facility. The room was a marvel of Alliance technology, capable of creating controlled dimensional pockets for safe practice. Even so, Marcus felt like his brain was trying to turn itself inside out. "Nothing about Void Wolf abilities makes sense to baseline beings," Shadowfang replied patiently. "That is why so few are chosen. Your species' stubborn refusal to accept that something is impossible is actually an advantage here. You simply need to stop trying to understand it intellectually and start experiencing it instinctively." Marcus wiped sweat from his forehead and looked at his partner. Over the past 3 weeks, their bond had deepened considerably. He was now able to share not just thoughts with Shadowfang, but sensory information. Through the wolf's enhanced senses, Marcus could perceive electromagnetic fields, detect gravitational anomalies, and even sense the emotional states of other beings at a distance. "Try again," Shadowfang instructed, moving to stand beside another dimensional rift he had opened. "This time, do not think about stepping through space. Think about stepping between spaces." Marcus approached the rift, which looked like a tear in the air itself, revealing glimpses of swirling cosmic energies beyond. Through their shared bond, he could feel Shadowfang's dimensional senses guiding him, showing him how to perceive the layers of reality that existed beyond normal space-time. He stepped forward, and instead of the nauseating wrench he had experienced in previous attempts, this time he felt a smooth transition, like diving into warm water. One moment he was standing beside Shadowfang, the next he was across the room, having moved through a space that technically did not exist in normal reality. Better, Shadowfang noted with approval. Your learning curve is actually quite impressive for a human. Sarah Rodriguez required 6 weeks to master basic dimensional transit. You knew her? Marcus asked, settling onto a bench to catch his breath. The mention of the missing colonel always made him curious. Of course, Nightshade and I served together for 2 years before their disappearance. Sarah Rodriguez was formidable, even more stubborn than you, if such a thing is possible. Shadowfang padded over and sat beside Marcus, his massive bulk somehow managing to look comfortable on the small bench. She and Nightshade were investigating reports of void spawn massing in the deep void regions, areas between galaxies where reality becomes unstable. What did they find? Shadowfang's mental presence grew troubled. Something that should not exist. The last communication we received suggested they had discovered void spawn structures, artificial constructs built from crystallized space-time itself. The implications were disturbing enough that they chose to investigate further rather than return immediately. Marcus frowned. The void spawn had always been treated as essentially mindless predators, consuming everything in their path without apparent intelligence or organization. The idea that they might be capable of construction, of planning beyond simple hunger, was terrifying. Are we going to look for them? Marcus asked. Eventually. But first, you need to master the basics of void combat. Speaking of which, Shadowfang's tone shifted to something Marcus had learned to recognize as his instructor voice. Today we begin weapons training. The wolf gestured with one paw, and a section of the training room's floor reconfigured itself, creating a weapons rack filled with items Marcus had never seen before. They looked like crystalline formations more than traditional weapons, each one humming with barely contained energy. Void weapons, Shadowfang explained, forged from crystallized dimensional energy and designed to damage beings that exist partially outside normal reality. Standard Alliance weapons are largely ineffective against void spawn because they cannot properly target entities that phase in and out of our dimensional framework. Marcus approached the rack and picked up what looked like a rifle made of black crystal shot through with veins of silver light. The moment his fingers closed around the grip, he felt the weapon respond to his presence, its energy signature aligning with his own biorhythm. That is a void rifle, Shadowfang noted. It fires concentrated bursts of dimensional energy that can track targets across multiple reality layers. The ammunition is limited only by your own life force, so try not to overexert yourself during practice. My life force? Marcus asked, alarmed. The weapons channel energy through the wielder. This is why only bonded pairs can use them effectively. The Void Wolf provides the dimensional awareness necessary to aim accurately, while the companion provides the stable life force needed to power the weapon. It is quite safe, as long as you do not attempt to fire continuously for extended periods. Marcus hefted the rifle, surprised by how natural it felt in his hands, despite its alien appearance. Through his bond with Shadowfang, he could sense dimensional fluctuations throughout the training room, perceiving targets that existed in folded space. Begin with the stationary targets, Shadowfang instructed. Remember, you are not aiming at where they appear to be, but where they actually are across multiple dimensional layers. Marcus raised the rifle and sighted down its length. Instead of traditional optics, the weapon projected a targeting display directly into his mind, showing not just the visible target, but its dimensional echoes across various reality layers. He squeezed the trigger, and a bolt of silver energy lanced out, striking the target dead center. Adequate, Shadowfang commented. Your hand-eye coordination translates well to dimensional targeting. Now try the moving targets. The training session continued for several hours, with Marcus learning to track and engage targets that phased in and out of reality, moved through dimensional rifts, and even attacked from folded space. By the end, he was exhausted but felt a growing confidence in his abilities. "You learn quickly for a human," Shadowfang observed as they concluded the session. "Most beings require months to develop basic competency with void weapons." "Military training," Marcus replied, carefully placing the rifle back on its rack. "We're taught to adapt to new weapon systems quickly. Plus, having a cosmic entity in my head giving me targeting data doesn't hurt." "I prefer the term dimensionally enlightened partner," Shadowfang corrected with dignity, "though I admit your species' capacity for rapid adaptation continues to impress me." Their conversation was interrupted by an urgent chime from the training room's communication system. A holographic display materialized, showing the face of Admiral Korvash, the Alliance's chief military coordinator. "Marcus Chen, report to the command center immediately," the Admiral's gravelly voice commanded. "We have a situation." Marcus and Shadowfang exchanged glances, or rather, Marcus looked at Shadowfang while feeling the wolf's concern through their mental link. "That was faster than expected," Shadowfang commented as they headed toward the training room's exit. "What was faster than expected?" "Your first mission assignment. I was hoping for at least another week of training, but apparently circumstances have accelerated our timeline." 20 minutes later, Marcus stood in the Alliance Command Center, surrounded by holographic displays showing star charts, tactical readouts, and what appeared to be sensor data from the Outer Rim territories. Admiral Korvash, a massive reptilian being with scarred hide and cybernetic enhancements, studied the displays with obvious concern. "Chen," the Admiral began without preamble, "3 hours ago, we lost contact with the Kepler 438 system. Population, 4 billion beings across 12 species. Last transmission indicated void spawn activity, but the scale was unlike anything we have seen before." Marcus studied the tactical display. Kepler 438 was a heavily populated system with advanced defense platforms, 3 Alliance naval bases, and a fleet of 40 capital ships for protection. Whatever had happened there must have been catastrophic to overwhelm those defenses so quickly. "Reconnaissance drones have confirmed multiple massive void spawn entities in the system," Admiral Korvash continued. "But more disturbing, our sensors are detecting artificial structures throughout the system, constructs that match the descriptions from Sarah Rodriguez's last transmission." "Shadowfang," Marcus said quietly, "are you thinking what I'm thinking? That this is connected to what Rodriguez and Nightshade discovered? Almost certainly." Shadowfang's mental voice was grim. "The timeline suggests the void spawn have been planning this for months." Admiral Korvash activated another display, showing what appeared to be a crystalline space station the size of a small moon, its surface crawling with void spawn entities. "This structure appeared in the system's asteroid belt 12 hours ago. Our analysis suggests it is some kind of command center or coordinating facility." "You want us to investigate," Marcus stated. "I want you to do what no other Alliance force can do. Get inside that structure and gather intelligence about void spawn capabilities and intentions. If they are truly organized, if they are building infrastructure, then our entire understanding of this war needs to be revised." Marcus looked at the display showing the alien structure, his mind already working through potential approaches. The facility was surrounded by a cloud of void spawn entities, making conventional assault impossible. But with Shadowfang's dimensional abilities, "We can get inside," Marcus said confidently. "When do we leave?" "Immediately. Your transport is already prepared." Admiral Korvash's expression grew serious. "Chen, this mission is classified at the highest levels. What you discover in that system could determine whether the Alliance survives the next phase of this war." "No pressure," Marcus muttered. "Considerable pressure, actually," Shadowfang added helpfully. "Though I have confidence in our abilities. After all, How difficult could infiltrating a space station full of interdimensional horror creatures possibly be? Did you just jinx us? Void wolves do not believe in luck, human. We believe in adequate preparation and superior firepower. As they headed toward the transport bay, Marcus felt the familiar mix of anticipation and apprehension that preceded dangerous missions. But this time, there was something more. Through his bond with Shadowfang, he could sense the wolf's deep concern about what they might find in the Kepler 438 system. "Shadowfang," Marcus said quietly as they boarded their stealth transport. "What aren't you telling me about the void spawn?" The wolf was silent for a moment, his mental presence heavy with ancient memories. "When my kind first encountered the void spawn eons ago, they were as you understand them now, mindless devourers driven by endless hunger. But there are legends, old stories among my people that speak of a time before the hunger, when the void spawn were something else entirely." "Something else like what?" "Builders, creators, a civilization that spanned multiple dimensions and commanded energies beyond current understanding." Shadowfang's mental voice carried an undertone of dread. "The legends say they discovered something in the deepest reaches of the void between realities, something that drove them mad with hunger and transformed them into the creatures we know today." Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. "And you think they might be remembering how to build again?" "I think," Shadowfang replied grimly, "that whatever Rodriguez and Nightshade found in the deep void may have awakened something that was better left sleeping." As their transport jumped to hyperspace, heading toward what might be the most dangerous mission in Alliance history, Marcus found himself wondering if 3 weeks of training would be enough to face whatever was waiting for them in the Kepler 438 system. Through their bond, he felt Shadowfang's unwavering confidence, but also the wolf's deep concern about the implications of their mission. "Well," Marcus said aloud as he checked his void weapons one final time, "I always wanted to see how humans stack up against cosmic horror." "You are about to find out," Shadowfang replied. "I suggest you prepare yourself for discoveries that will challenge everything you thought you knew about reality." "Any advice?" "Remember that courage is not the absence of fear, but action in spite of fear. Also, try not to get us both killed in some heroically stupid human fashion." "I make no promises about that last part." "I was afraid you would say that," Shadowfang sighed mentally. "This is going to be interesting indeed." The Kepler 438 system was a graveyard. As Marcus stared out the viewports of their stealth transport, he could see the debris of what had once been one of the Alliance's most heavily defended positions. Massive chunks of space stations drifted like metallic icebergs through the void, their hulls torn open and venting atmosphere in crystalline clouds. The defending fleet was gone. Not destroyed, but simply missing, as if 40 capital ships had been erased from existence. "Sensors are picking up dimensional distortions throughout the system," Lieutenant Commander Yarrell, their Zephyrian pilot, reported from the cockpit. "Whatever happened here, it was not conventional warfare." Through his bond with Shadowfang, Marcus could feel the wolf's senses reaching out across the system, perceiving layers of reality that normal sensors could not detect. The feedback was disturbing. Reality itself felt wounded here, as if the fundamental structure of space-time had been damaged. The void spawn did not simply attack this system. Shadowfang's mental voice was grim. "They harvested it. I can sense dimensional scarring consistent with mass reality extraction." "Reality extraction?" Marcus asked quietly, not wanting to alarm the pilot. "They have learned to consume not just matter and energy, but the dimensional framework that allows reality to exist. This is far beyond anything they were capable of before." Shadowfang's presence in Marcus's mind carried undertones of genuine fear. "Whatever has awakened their ancient abilities, it represents a threat to the entire universe." Their transport shuddered as it passed through a field of dimensional distortions. Outside, Marcus could see the crystalline space station Admiral Corvash had shown them, but seeing it in person was far more disturbing than any holographic display could convey. The structure was massive, easily 50 kilometers across, and it pulsed with sickly bioluminescent patterns that hurt to look at directly. "There," Lieutenant Commander Yarel pointed to a section of the station where the crystalline surface appeared damaged. "Looks like some kind of docking bay. I can get us close, but you will have to use your dimensional abilities to actually get inside." Marcus studied the station through their shared senses. Through Shadowfang's perception, he could see that the structure existed across multiple dimensional layers simultaneously, its true size and complexity hidden from normal observation. Worse, it was crawling with void spawn entities, thousands of them moving through passages that existed in folded space. "I count at least 3,000 void spawn signatures," Marcus reported, "multiple size classifications, including several that are much larger than anything in our previous encounter files." "This is definitely a command structure," Shadowfang confirmed. "I can sense concentrated intelligence directing their activities. We need to reach the central core to gather meaningful intelligence." "Get us as close as you can," Marcus told their pilot. "We will infiltrate through dimensional transit and try to reach whatever is controlling this operation." Lieutenant Commander Yarel nodded nervously. Like most Alliance personnel, she had heard stories about human-wolf partnership teams, but this was her first time actually working with one. "How long should I wait before assuming you are not coming back?" "If we are not back in 6 hours, return to the Alliance and report what we have found," Marcus replied, checking his void weapons one final time. "Do not attempt a rescue. If we fail here, the Alliance needs to know what they are really facing." The transport moved as close as it dared to the crystalline station, using its stealth systems to avoid detection. Marcus and Shadowfang moved to the airlock, preparing for what would likely be the most dangerous mission either of them had ever attempted. "Ready?" Shadowfang asked, his massive form shimmering as he began to phase partially out of normal reality. Marcus placed his hand on Shadowfang's flank, feeling their bond synchronize their dimensional frequencies. "Ready?" They stepped through the airlock and immediately phased into the space between dimensions. The sensation was like diving into an ocean of liquid starlight, with currents of pure energy flowing around them in patterns that defied description. Through this dimensional medium, they approached the alien station, passing through its crystalline hull as if it were made of mist. Inside, the station was a nightmare of organic architecture and impossible geometry. Passages curved through dimensions that did not exist in normal space, while walls pulsed with veins of dark energy that seemed to absorb light itself. Worst of all, the air was filled with a constant subsonic humming that resonated in frequencies human ears were not designed to hear. "The structure is partially alive," Shadowfang observed as they moved through a corridor that twisted back on itself in ways that made Marcus's eyes water. "It has been grown rather than built, using techniques that blend technology with dimensional biology." They advanced carefully, using their shared senses to avoid the void spawn entities that moved through the station's passages. The creatures came in varieties Marcus had never seen before. Some were humanoid shapes made of crystallized darkness. Others resembled living geometric patterns that existed in too many dimensions simultaneously. "There!" Shadowfang directed Marcus's attention to a passage that sloped downward toward the station's core. "The central intelligence is below us. I can sense massive computational activity and something else." As they descended deeper into the station, the architecture became increasingly disturbing. The walls were covered with what appeared to be organic circuits, living neural networks that pulsed with alien thoughts. More troubling, Marcus began to recognize some of the technology integrated into the alien systems. "Those are Alliance quantum processors," he whispered, pointing to components that had clearly been salvaged from destroyed ships and stations. They are not just harvesting matter and energy, they are studying our technology. Worse than that, Shadowfang replied grimly. They are integrating it with their own systems, creating hybrid technologies that combine our engineering with their dimensional manipulation abilities. They reached a vast chamber at the station's heart, and Marcus had to suppress a gasp of shock. The room was filled with hundreds of crystalline pods, each one containing what appeared to be Alliance personnel in various states of modification. Tubes and cables connected the pods to massive organic computers, while void spawn entities moved between the installations like technicians. They are not killing their prisoners, Marcus realized with horror. They are converting them. At the center of the chamber stood a figure that made Marcus's blood run cold. It was humanoid in shape, but clearly no longer entirely human. Its skin had taken on a crystalline texture similar to the void spawn, while its eyes burned with the same dimensional fire. When it turned to look directly at their hiding place, Marcus realized with a shock that he recognized the face. "Colonel Sarah Rodriguez," he breathed. The figure smiled, revealing teeth that had been replaced with crystalline formations. When she spoke, her voice carried harmonics that suggested she was speaking across multiple dimensions simultaneously. "Marcus Chen," Rodriguez said, her tone carrying a mixture of satisfaction and pity. "I wondered when they would send you. Come out, both of you. There is no point in hiding from someone who can perceive dimensional fluctuations." Marcus and Shadowfang emerged from their concealment, weapons ready but not yet aimed. The chamber was filled with void spawn entities, but none of them seemed threatening. They simply watched with obvious intelligence. "Sarah," Marcus said carefully, "what happened to you? Where is Nightshade?" Rodriguez gestured to a massive crystalline formation near the center of the chamber, and Marcus could see the outline of a void wolf within the transparent structure. "Nightshade is here, as am I. We discovered the truth about the void spawn, Marcus. They were not always monsters. They were explorers, scientists, builders who pushed too far into the spaces between realities and found something that transformed them." "The hunger," Shadowfang said, his mental voice tight with recognition. The legends were true. "The hunger was a symptom, not a cause," Rodriguez corrected. "They found the source of all creation, the wellspring from which all realities emerge. But consciousness cannot comprehend infinite possibility without being fundamentally changed. The hunger was their way of trying to process the impossible knowledge they had gained." Marcus felt his grip tighten on his void rifle. "So, you decided to join them?" "I decided to help them remember what they once were," Rodriguez replied. "The process is not pleasant, but it is necessary. Humanity's stubborn refusal to accept limitations makes us ideal candidates for the transformation. We can retain our individual consciousness while gaining access to cosmic knowledge that spans multiple realities." "You are talking about forcible conversion of entire populations," Marcus accused. "I am talking about evolution," Rodriguez countered. "The universe is vast beyond human comprehension, filled with wonders and horrors that no baseline consciousness can understand. The void spawn offer a path to transcendence, to becoming something greater than what we are." Through his bond with Shadowfang, Marcus could feel the wolf's growing alarm. The revelation that the void spawn were not simply destroyers, but beings seeking to transform other species into their own kind, changed everything about the war they were fighting. "The Alliance will never accept this," Marcus said firmly. "And neither will I." Rodriguez's expression grew sad. "I had hoped you would be more open-minded. Very well. The conversion process can be completed without consent, though it is more difficult." She gestured, and the void spawn entities in the chamber began to move toward Marcus and Shadowfang. But instead of the mindless hunger they had expected, the creatures moved with obvious intelligence and coordination. Now would be an excellent time for one of your heroically insane tactical decisions, Shadowfang commented as Marcus raised his void rifle. Marcus smiled grimly. I have an idea. How do you feel about controlled demolitions? Oh, wonderful. Are you planning to collapse the station on top of us? Not the station, Marcus replied, targeting the massive organic computer system at the chamber's center. The dimensional anchor keeping this place stable in normal space. He opened fire, sending bolt after bolt of dimensional energy into the crystalline formations that served as the station's reality stabilizers. The effect was immediate and catastrophic. The chamber began to shake as the station's dimensional framework started to collapse. "You fool!" Rodriguez screamed over the sound of buckling reality. "You will trap us all in the void between dimensions!" That's the idea, Marcus replied, continuing to fire at critical system nodes. Shadowfang, can you get us out of here? Working on it, the wolf replied, his form beginning to phase as he prepared to open a dimensional rift. But the reality distortions are making it difficult to establish a stable exit vector. The void spawn entities rushed toward them, but their movements were becoming erratic as the dimensional collapse spread throughout the station. Marcus switched to full automatic fire, his void rifle sending streams of energy into the approaching creatures while Shadowfang struggled to open an escape route. Got it, Shadowfang announced as a rift in space opened behind them. Go, now! Marcus dove through the dimensional tear just as the chamber imploded around them. He had a brief sensation of falling through layers of reality before emerging in the normal space near their transport. What did you do? Lieutenant Commander Urel demanded, as alarms screamed throughout their ship. Destabilize the station's dimensional anchor, Marcus replied, watching as the massive crystalline structure began to fold in on itself. It should be completely destroyed within minutes. And Rodriguez? Marcus was silent for a moment, watching the station collapse into a point of twisted space-time that finally winked out of existence. She made her choice. Through their bond, he could feel Shadowfang's complex emotions about what they had witnessed. The wolf was relieved to have escaped, but deeply troubled by the implications of what Rodriguez had revealed. The war is about to change, Shadowfang observed as their transport jumped to hyperspace, carrying them back to Alliance space. If the Void Spawn are actively converting populations rather than simply consuming them, our entire defensive strategy will need to be revised. Marcus nodded grimly. The Alliance needs to know what we discovered. And they need to understand that this war is not about survival anymore. It is about maintaining what it means to be human in a universe that offers transcendence at the cost of our humanity. Do you think we made the right choice? Shadowfang asked quietly. Rodriguez believed she was offering evolution, advancement beyond current limitations. Maybe she was, Marcus replied, but evolution that requires giving up who we are is not evolution. It is replacement. Humans fight for the right to remain human, whatever the cost. Even when the cost might be the entire universe? Marcus considered this for a moment, then smiled grimly. Especially then. That is what makes us human. The willingness to fight impossible battles because they are right, not because they can be won. Adequate reasoning, Shadowfang commented with what Marcus had learned to recognize as approval. Though I suspect our next mission will be even more challenging than this one. Why do you say that? Because we have just declared war on cosmic evolution itself. The universe has a way of responding poorly to such declarations. Marcus laughed despite the grim circumstances. Well, it would not be the first impossible war humanity has gotten itself into. No, Shadowfang agreed, his mental voice carrying undertones of affection and respect. But it may be the most important one. The Alliance will need every advantage it can get. for what is coming. As their transport carried them back toward Alliance space, Marcus reflected on how much his life had changed since the bonding ceremony. He was no longer just a human marine or even just a human-wolf partnership team. He had become something entirely new, a guardian of humanity's right to remain human in a universe that offered transcendence at an unacceptable cost. The war against the Void Spawn was far from over, but now they understood what they were really fighting for. And with Shadowfang at his side, Marcus was ready for whatever challenges lay ahead. "Partners?" he asked aloud. "Partners," Shadowfang confirmed, "though I still think your species has an unhealthy relationship with hopeless causes. That's what makes us special. Indeed. It is also what makes you utterly terrifying to cosmic entities who prefer predictable outcomes." Marcus grinned. "Good. Let them be afraid for once."